Hey, what's good? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video, man. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and all the other good stuff. Watch the ads because they help me out. You feel me? Well, look. As you about to the video, we're going to talk about a few hunter builds that we are going to be using for this season right here. These are absolutely meta, absolutely OP, and have different versatility. Okay. Now, to give you a little brief overview of what we're going to be talking about and what we're going to go over. We're going to have a Invis Hunter right here. That's going to be the first one we're going to touch on. A Solar Hunter with the Autumn Car Spine. So, you know, we're going to throw on the trip mines galore. Now, these are going to be new takes on these builds since they are going to be updated for not only the season, but beyond as well, since we had increased fragment slots and stuff like that that helped really improve our overall build. Now, I do have a stasis with a shadow drive that can actually be very good. If you do want to touch on that, let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see that build. But our other build that we're going to really touch on is the Strand, you know, with the little shadow clones and whatnot. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Has two different variations of this. One actually with that exotic right there, and the other one with our bombardiers, which actually stack and work alongside the new Strand aspect. Okay, now Radiant SP does not. Just a little FYI for everyone. Now, if you want, we can go over the Arc Hunter as well. Actually, it's pretty much as is right there. You use a hothead for some damage. Radiant Flux if you're really just trying to prioritize that super, which is all this build is about. It's just really getting out that super as best as possible, generating as much orbs as possible to get your super back to then do as much damage as possible. Have your be in your super as long as possible, and just work in tandem like that. So, without further ado, let's hop into it. Now, this one is going to be something that you can do two different takes on. One, use 6 Coyote if you're doing more solo. Oh, excuse me, y'all. Solo game. Or if you're in a fire team, like a full fire team, or even a raid group, you can use the Omni Oculus is a good replacement for the 6 Coyote. Now, instead of 2 dodges with 6 Coyote, you'll get 2 smoke bombs, and you'll get a refund smoke bomb of 50% whenever you hit at one of your allies, turn them as well, and you'll get the full smoke bomb back. You at least hit 2 of your allies with your smoke bomb. Okay. So keep that in mind. And your stealth does not count. Just to keep that, you know, no. Now, in terms of actual subclass, we're going to use Mobius Quiver, Gambler's Dodge, Triple Jump, Snare Bomb, Vortex Grenade is the best one, Trapper's Ambush, Vanishing Step, and since Trapper's Ambush now has 2 fragment slots, it's absolutely incredible. Now, Echo Obscurity is going to definitely help us out, especially after we do the Trapper's Ambush, especially on a lot of trash mobs. And the higher end content, it will definitely lead them in that finisher range. And lower end content, the Trapper's Ambush should just go ahead and take them out. So you have options there. For Echo of Obscurity though, when you do a finisher, you grant invisibility, thus going into the whole idea of the build, which is always being invisible. So if you're the hunter, like how I am for my group, I do a lot of the mechanics. So like Spire the Watcher, I'm going to be the one that is going to connect all the different tubes and coils and connect the power from there to there and we'll run over there. So this build is absolutely meta S tier 4 or something like that. Okay. Now, Echo Starvation is going to be, excuse me, I'm getting a call, y'all. Echo Starvation is going to give us the power when we pick an orb, a power or void breach. Now, orb power is something that we can not only generate ourselves, but also because of our allies and whatnot, it's going to be something that we're always pretty much going to have from it. And since Devour does give us full health, we don't need something like Recuperation in the leg mods and stuff like that. It also gives grenade energy and reset the timer of our Devour. So if we ever get low on health for whatever reason, we know we just take care of a trash mob, whether it be Trapper's Ambush or just our weapon, and just call it a day. Okay, even throw another grenade out there or something. Call it a day. We're gonna get it right back as long as we get more kills with Devour active anyways. Now, Echo Persistence is going to make our Overshield, Invisibility, and Devour just have increased duration, which is going to work perfectly well when, oh, sorry y'all, get another call. So now we're perfectly well in terms of our build here to always stay invisible. Now, if we have something like repulsor brace, it's going to be absolutely fantastic to use, especially if we already in Trapper's Ambush. Our snare bomb I see here weakens target. So with repulsor brace, you have to get a void debuff. Defeat that void debuff target to get the overshield, which this can allow that overshield to last longer. So it's going to work in tandem right there. Now this last slot is going to be a more flexible slot. This build is already good before the Season of the Deep, but it's going to be fantastic since Season Deep on and beyond. Okay. Now some I like to use Echo Domineering, which is pretty much going to give us a similar buff to Stompies. It's absolutely insane for the mobility aspect of this. It's very, very good. And you'll get suppression by your Mobius Quiver. I know some people are going to ask in the comments. But if you're not really getting that too often, then something else that you could use is Echo Vigilance if you're just trying to stay alive more often to get an overshield outside of just a repulsor brace on your weapon. Some people might not have it, so there's that. If you want just a normal standard, just always be debuffing your enemies, just use Echo Undermine. So not only your Snare Bomb debuffs enemies, but your Vortex Grenade does as well. Now another thing that you could be using is, where'd it go? Echo Vigilance. Oh wait, no, I already talked about that one. Yeah. Oh, Echo Vigilance or Echo Leeching if you're trying to get that health regeneration, or even just overshield right here. I like Echo Vigilance personally a little bit more, especially since whenever you are in those like, oh my goodness, like the oh crap situations, Echo Vigilance is going to help trigger a lot easier. Echo Leeching definitely relies more on a lot more trash enemies, a lot more ads to be in the mix for Trapper's Ambush to really be effective and do enough damage for that. So keep that in consideration right there. Now with our weapon setup, I like to use Conditional Finality, but if you don't have it, Riptide is always a good thing. Hit it with any champion, you'll take them out. Okay, stun any champion, take them all out. I like to use the lightweight frame here. All right, goodness, I'm just getting calls left and right apparently. Excuse me, y'all. I use Funnel Web or the Hero's Burden. The Hero's Burden I got with Repulsor Brace, so I love to use that one for just general case play, especially if you're doing more harder content. Now, if you're just trying to go around and do mechanics, which is more what this build like leans into a little bit more, the Funnel Web is good because it has lightweight frame, thus allowing you to have increased mobility and movement speed whenever you are holding this gun. Then Leviathan's Breath, if you are not using Conditional Finality or don't have it for whatever reason. If you are using Conditional Finality, then use a good Linear Fusion is good. The new Void Braytech rocket launcher is also good with the perk pool that it has. So there's definitely options. You can use a roll entry rocket if you really want to, with like auto loading and demolitionist, something like that. It's also fantastic as well. Now, in terms of our stats, you pretty much want to have, if you're doing one of the 6 Coyote, just as high as mobility as you can and max resilience. Everything else does not matter. If you're doing antioxidants, depending on what your fire team composition is and how close y'all are going to be, I recommend that you definitely get max resilience first and foremost. And then you try to get your strength and mobility to an even rate. So if they're both 50, then get them both 50. If they're both 80, but go both 80. They're pretty much equally as important. Now, if you're always going to be grouped up with your team, definitely get mobility more and over strength, especially whenever your group does break, you'll be able to hit that dodge a lot quicker and be able to chain, dodge, then a smoke bomb, then dodge again, then another smoke bomb, pretty much keep that same back and forth on it going. But if you are doing more like solo or just you and one other person in your group, then 6 Coyote is going to be way better off for you and come back a lot quicker, since your dodge is one of the quickest things to come back as a hunter. Now, in terms of actual mods, though, pretty much Harmonic Siphon and Dynamo is pretty much going to be a guarantee. Ambient Finder or Special Finder, depending on what you're using. taking out a lot more champions and whatnot. Special on fire is good, especially with that Riptide and conditional finality. If you're just trying to do more damage across the board, Hell Fire is the way to go. Now, for actual build to tie into it, I'll use Focusing Strike, about 2 of them, since they're normally 2, but because the season is discounted to 1, so keep that in consideration. But it grants class ability energy whenever you do damage with melee attack. So if you use your Trapper's Ambush on an enemy or with enemies in that area, you're going to get your class ability back, which is just, well, some energy for your class ability back. Since we have 2, you're going to get even more increased energy, which is going to be fantastic. And I also have Bolstering Detonation, which is going to allow us to use our grenade to trigger our dodge again, our class ability. So it's just going to work in tandem, always keeping us invisible, always having our abilities up to turn invisible. Now I'm over here getting tagged up. So, but for our chest, it's very situational what you're trying to run. In terms of content, I generally like to have a sniper damage resistant and a melee damage resistance. A lot of stuff hits you, a lot of hard hitting stuff hits you with void, like the wyverns and different like servitors and stuff like that. They always like to do big AoE void damage to you. So having a good Hummer Siphon on is fantastic as well. Just depends on what you're running, okay? Now in terms of our legs, once again, we don't actually need recuperation because of Devour. So because of it, we're going to use Insulation, get our class ability up whenever you get the Orb Power. Mind you, Orb Power from Harmonic Siphon up there. Absolution, so we can get all our abilities. I believe Insulation is like about an 8% refund of your ability, of your class ability. Well, Absolution is 4% across the board, so it's like 12 altogether, but 4, 4, 4. And then Innovation, get our grenade back. Now we don't really need to focus on the melee coming back unless you have Anti-Oculus. Then you can switch this one out for this right here, Invigoration, to get our melee cooldown reduced each time we pick up Orb Power. But once again, I believe this is like 8, this is about 4. But if you have 2 of the same, I think it goes like 6 or something like that. Like you're pretty much better off getting Absolution as opposed to that. Pretty certain. I have to look at the spreadsheet again, but I'm pretty sure based off of the test and the other information I've compiled together. Now in terms of our actual cloak right here, you pretty much want to have 2 utility kickstarts. If you want to generate a little bit more orbs, then you can go ahead and use a Reaper mod, or even just have distribution out. But distribution is only really good for pairing with like a bomber perk. Just have it out. Your utilities kickstarts gonna be way better when you have 2 of them together like this than you using these right here. 1, you get melee back whenever you dodge, so that's not gonna be a problem. And our grenade, we really don't want to use because it's gonna take us out of invisibility for 1. And 2, since we don't have Styles Executioner on and our grenades weakened in the first place, that's not going to do us any good to keep spamming our grenades. Now I have max discipline just because my gear is good like that at the moment. But you really just need mobility and resistance, and that's it. Okay. Now that is our Void Invis Hunter, and you're pretty much always going to be invisible from it. You're able to do what you need to do and keep going. And as you're closer to more and more enemies, my dodge will actually been up already. But as you even see now, it's actually pretty much back as is. And I ended all my visibilities early, and I can already go back into invisibility, as you see. So that is fantastic for a plethora of different activities in game. Now, for something that's more ad clear and more boss damage phase focus, we're gonna have our Solar Hunter Blade Barrage, because you know that's what we're gonna be using. Gambler's Dodge yet again, because I saw we have the card Spine, which is not gonna be a situational thing. You're always gonna use this for the Solar Hunter, okay? Increase trip mine duration and blast radius, as well as ability damage grants trip mine grenade energy. Now this thing is absolutely insane with the trip mines. It just gives us a pretty much trip mine on steroids. especially with the knife trick. Knife trick is 3 different knives, and they give your grenade back if you hit all 3 every time. It's guaranteed. Even if you hit 2 with this build, you're gonna get your grenade back. Okay. Depending on what you're doing, you might even get it in 1. You might not even need the knife trick to get your grenade back. It just depends on what's all going on. Okay. Knock them down. You already know we're gonna use that 1 blade barrage, and 2 when we're radiant, which you're gonna have by fragment here. You get your throwaway knife fully refunded each time you get a kill with it. Okay. Now, the thing that is going to be changing from our previous one, which is on your mark, is going to be gunpowder gamble, which is pretty much a solar ignition that you just throw it at your whim. Now, you normally have to charge it up with, as you see, defeating targets with abilities, which since it's going to be an ability spam build, it's just going to be perfect for it. This used to be really good. The only downfall of it was the fact that it only gives you 1 fragment stop, and now they give you 2. And this season, oh my goodness, it's absolutely insane. And this is meta. I'm gonna say here now, it is meta. Ember torches, 1, get our powered melee attacks, i.e. knife trick, to be radiant, and to give us radiant, which then allows our knocking down perk to get our knife to fully be refunded each time we get a final blow with it. Thus have infinite knives along for radiant, which will happen indefinitely because of our ember torches. So it's kind of like that, just encompasses itself right there. And since that counts as ability damage, it's going to allow us to hit our trip bonds pretty much every single last time. Ember searing is what you want to use, since our knife tricks scorches enemies, our turbine grenade scorches enemies, and even the gunpowder gamble, if it doesn't kill the enemies with the ignition itself, it'll scorch enemies, which will play into the fact that you're going to defeat that enemy and it'll grant you more melee energy. This time, well, with this, it's actually pretty good in the sense that a lot of times you won't even have to use your dodge, the gambler's dodge that is, to get your melee ability back, especially if you didn't end up defeating that one with the melee itself. Then, depending on how many enemies are around the area or whatnot, especially with the ignition, the grenade, and even the gunpowder gamble ignition, all those 3, it will do plenty of damage and pretty much get your melee back to you with the Ember Searing here. Also, it creates a fire sprite, 1 to give us the armor charge depending on what we're rocking, and 2 to go in tandem with the Ember Mercy here on that fire sprite to give us restoration, thus keeping us up and keeping us healthy. You know what I mean? Keeping us alive, essentially. Now, like I said before, these scorching enemies are multiple ways to scorch with this build. You can also scorch with your weapons. So, because of that, we're going to use Ember Ascending just so our class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. You don't even have to kill them, you just gotta scorch them, and our class ability comes back insanely fast. It's similar to the stasis fragment that allows your grenade to come back whenever you shatter a crystal. It's on that kind of level of fast. So, especially if you have high mobility like we have here. Now with this build, like I said, you can use something like Connection Finality. You can use a plethora of different things. Polaris Lance, Skyburn's Oath, Tony's Matchbook, the Callus mini tool, the Drang with incandescent. You can even have this auto rifle incandescent. Have any kind of submachine gun incandescent. Incandescent's gonna be your friend. Even though we don't have the Ashes assets, Ember Ashes. My apologies, y'all. I'm tripping. Ember Ashes. Since we don't have that, it's still fine, cool, and dandy. We have so many abilities that we're spamming out anyways, and ignition on call, that it's not going to matter. We're still going to have plenty of ignitions going on without the Ember of Ashes being equipped. Okay, and then I like to have a solar sword. You can have collective action, or you can have the seasonal sword from the past season with incandescent on it as well. We're just trying to add clear. If you're trying to have more like damage, you can always throw in a Gallahorn if you want to help your team out. Excuse me. Throwing a Gallahorn, especially since you're doing so much ability damage anyways, you can just have your wolf pack rounds given to your teammates in the background the whole time while having your sword or your rocket out. If you want, you can still have 1,000 voices. There's plenty of different heavy weapons to use. I recommend pretty much rocket, 1,000 voices, or just a sword, depending on what you're running. Now, in terms of actual mods, once again, Harmonic Siphon, Dynamo, since we will be dodging a lot from the ability rotation, and especially on the finder if you have conditional finality on. If you don't have conditional finality on, especially, you could use Riptide, but if you don't have conditional finality on, I recommend that you get Heavy Ammo Finder instead. But I recommend you use Riptide instead of conditional if you don't have conditional finality, so you can still stun all the champions as needed. Now, in terms of our hands, heavy-handed, because we're going to do a lot of final blows with our melee, especially with the Radiant and the Infinite Melees that we're able to get because of it. Impact Induction, so it's pretty much essentially what Ahamkar does, amplified, but we're also going to do it here, just so we always have our grenade back. Now, this is definitely a free slot. You can even throw in, if you have enough for it, because I use Stasis Loader because of conditional finality, but you know, grenade kickstart if needed. And instead of impact induction, which I still recommend that you pretty much get, you can use bolster and detonation. Okay, so you can get your class ability back when you cause damage to your grenade, thus helping complete the cycle yet again. Now, in terms of the chest, depends on what activity you're doing. I like to, generally speaking, have melee and sniper resistance, but change it according to the activity. Now, recuperation is something that we want to use for this build, just so we always stay on top of our health here. Absolution, so we can get all of our abilities back, and innervation, so we can get our grenade back a little bit quicker. Now, you want to use, instead of using 2 innervations, you want to use absolution, just because it's pretty much gonna do the same equivalent of 2 innervation mods would do anyways, but instead of you just getting to solely your grenade, you can get to all your abilities the exact same rate. So there's no point in running 2 of these without running an absolution if you have the extra energy to spare. Now, in terms of our Hunter Cloak, Reaper Mod to, you know, pretty much produce the orbs. I'll use distribution and then pair it with a bomber right there, okay? And that is essentially going to be it, y'all. This thing works insanely well, and your rotation of abilities is pretty much going to be as follow. Throw your grenade out. Actually, it works fantastic. Throw your knives. Actually, you get your knife back. You do that. Throw it, and you'll hit your grenade again. And that's pretty much going to be it right there for that one. Grenade, knife, throw grenade. Ooh, and we already got our gunpowder gamble ready. Look at that. Actually, nice chunky damage, nice ignition. But let's go ahead and do this again. So grenade, knife, and then it gives you your knife and grenade back. And then look, we already got gunpowder gamble ready again, so it's like a whole nother grenade, and you can shoot out the air if you really want to, or let it stick onto a target. It's on you. So it's just fantastic damage all around. Good for ad clear, good for single target damage, just good all around. It is fantastic all around build. Highly recommend. Now for the last build, it's pretty much going to be Strand right here. I have 2 variations of this. One is for higher end content, which is going to be the woven mail right here. And 2 is going to be with bombardiers here. If you like bombardiers or if you want to try it out, definitely recommend that you do, just because of how it can work together with it. Let me actually switch over to it, and I'll show you. So with bombardiers, and especially with this new aspect, you pretty much gonna have that. So whenever you dodge, you want to have your woven mail decoy, which they're gonna shoot at and not you, and then it's gonna have the threading, so you're gonna take them out. With 2, let me get over here. You see that little white thing? That is from the Bombardier, which also does about 20k additional damage. Then you have the Threadlings, which do like a 20k per one there. So it's just very nice damage to couple with one another. So this is definitely going to be a very higher damage as build that you're really using your class ability for. Since your class ability comes back so insanely fast, it's definitely going to be very, very good in pretty much all content. But if you are having more trouble with survivability for whatever reason, then you can definitely use the Hunter Helmet exotic, which is going to be, sorry, I'm trying to get the safety real quick. This one right here, I don't know how to say it. The facade, the cry facade, which pretty much gives you roll and melt whenever you grapple. So if you're using grapple, you see how it can be effective. Now, in terms of weapons, real quick before we get into the subclass, I like to use this Strand shotgun. It's brand new. It's very good. You can also use the Quicksilver Storm. That's fine. You can use the Pulse Rifle if you want, or one of the SMGs. Perfectly fine. I'd use a shotgun personally because there's trench barrel. It's absolutely insane. Very, very good. And then once I get the sword, the Strand sword, the Vortex Frame one, I will couple that with this as well. Just have everything Strand and Strand weapon. Especially with the few variations that you can make of this build, you want to have Strand weapons, okay? Now, in terms of actual subclass, Silk Strike is the only one we have for supers at the moment. Gambler's Dodge, because the melee got a good, very good buff, so it's actually pretty good and pretty decent. Threaded Spike, Triple Jump, Sweaty Gold, Grapple Grenade, Widow Silk we already had, and you know if we're using Grapple, you gotta use Widow Silk. Come on now. And then the very new, brand new aspect here, Threaded Spectre. As you already saw the decoys. Pretty much give you a little shadow clone S thing that once enemies either get too close to it or do too much damage to it, it's gonna blow up, do a detonation damage as well as threadling damage. So this is good all around. It pairs beautifully well with the Bombardiers that we're gonna pair with. Okay. Now in terms of fragments, we're gonna have our threadlings from our aspect here, from our new class ability, to do more damage and travel further with the Echo Evolution. Echo Regeneration, you know, we gotta have our grenade pretty much back, allowing us to grapple more often and all that good stuff. And because of the threadlings, they'll help us generate that grenade energy back, as well as the Bombardier ones as well, okay? Now, if you're using Bombardiers, you need the thread of warning. If you're not using Bombardiers and you're using the facade exotic, then you definitely take the thread of warning out, and you'll use something like thread of propagation, which powered melee final blows, grant your stranded weapons unraveling rounds, especially with the seasonal artifact. Unraveling rounds does pretty phenomenal damage. I'm not gonna front. They already were good, but they just made it a lot better with the seasonal artifact. So that is on you. And then Thread of Ascent is something that you can use. I personally love using, especially with the shotgun, so you don't have to waste time reloading stuff. You can pretty much just go. Now this is a nice quality of life thing I like to implement. If you don't want to use it for whatever reason, then hey, you can still use Thread of Propagation to get them unraveling rounds with your stranded weapons, especially since you should be using stranded weapons in this one. If you don't want to use that one because you're not really trying to do too much grappling, which I don't know why that's the whole point of the build, but I know a few people that are like that. So hey, Thread of Rebirth, strand weapons have a chance to create the threadling. It's always a good thing to have. Or you can use, where's that? Finish your final blows, create threadling. Especially in higher end content, after you do a grapple melee, more likely they're going to be that finisher range. So then you hit the finisher on it, create threadlings, and then it pairs up with the thread of evolution, which then just pairs up beautifully well with all around. Because then right after that, after you do that finisher and they have a threadling hit another enemy, more likely they're going to be ready for a finisher. You hit another one, and it's, you know, back to back, ever perpetuating itself. Now, we already talked about the weapons. In terms of the stats distribution, you pretty much want to have max mobility, max resilience, and max discipline. Now, you can skip on the resilience a little bit. I normally am full, as you see by that. I just need to move the grenade numbers over a little bit. But normally I'm 100, 100, and 100 here. You know, thanks to Artifice Armor. But because other bombardiers were a little low on this, which is perfectly fine if you have woven mail or can get woven mail pretty consistently, you'll be perfectly fine, and that won't be a problem whatsoever at all there. But just definitely keep that in mind. In terms of actual mods on our gear, once again, harmonic siphon, dynamo to get that super back, and special or heavy ammo finder, depending on what you're trying to do. Now, if you want just your super, you don't really want to care about the weapons too much, then I definitely recommend that you use hands-on. Now, hands-on ashes to assets is not stacked together, so keep that in mind. You're going to use one or the other. Since hands-on is discounted this season, definitely use that. Not only to discount this season, and pretty much better to use for this season, but every season since, you can also get increased super energy when you use your threaded spike and things of that nature as well. Especially when you have the shotgun trench barrel and you're doing melee anyways, you may end up defeating the enemy, so you're gonna get bonus super energy from that. That's just nice to have all around. Now, for the other one, you want to have Focus Strike, which once again, your melee attacks gonna do increase. Will grant you class ability energy. Now, another thing that you could use instead of that is bolstering detonation here, which is when you cause damage to your grenade. So you essentially grapple on to a target and just grapple. You can get grenade energy based off of that. So something to take consideration too. Just it's on you essentially. Heavy hand I like to use, just getting a little bit more power to always have that up. But if you don't want heavy ammo and you just want your abilities to always be there, always come back, one heavy handed can do that for you. But you can always just go over here to bolstering detonation, so your class ability comes back when you do the grenade. Okay. And then grenade kickstart. You don't need multiple mods of this. It actually works very well if you have one mod and just more armor charges to have. So more armor charges to consume for grenade kickstart. So definitely keep that in mind there. As your chest, pretty much the same deal. I like to use melee and standard resistance, but do whatever the activity calls for. Then for the feet, you pretty much want to have recuperation. Even though we got great damage mitigation, great damage resistance with this build here, recuperation is still going to be very key, especially in higher end content. Very key. Innervation and insulation, so we get our class ability and grenade back to pretty much perpetuate the same cycle of flying in there like Spider-Man, doing what we gotta do, and then do that out and just keep going. Ever perpetuating itself. Now, in terms of our cloak here, our class item here, utility kickstart, so we can get our nice little chunk back on our class ability there. I use Reaper so we can, get our class and grenade back off of that. And then bomber right here. Now, if you don't want to use Reaper and you just want pure classes, you can use distribution, since it will affect all three of your abilities, which is fantastic right there. But just to let you know, distribution is actually better off using in tandem with a bomber as opposed to just two bombers if you're trying to get the most out of it. And I say that because the percentage that you get from this, with this bomber with distribution together, at least for the grenade alone, it's the same as you using two bombers. So you might as well get, your melee and class ability energy a little love too. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I'm gonna show you my arc one right here. You can pretty much go over it as needed. Arc one's pretty much all about generating orbs and just keep going and keep getting your abilities up to keep generating more orbs to then get your super and have your super last as long as possible and do the most damage possible. That's all the arc one is for this season. That's my run around and have fun build. But yeah, those are a few builds as a hunter that you should definitely try for this season and beyond. It's absolutely insane, absolutely fantastic at what we got here in Destiny, and I just can't wait. Can't wait to be over the video so I can keep going with these builds and keep playing them. Try them out for yourself. Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about them, any changes or critiques that you have. Let me know in the comment section as well. Without further ado, like, comment, subscribe, share the video out, let people know about these builds, and yeah, peace and shalom.